Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Thank you for that very snazzy music. I know we needed that, right? It's been a day of learning. We had session 3 earlier. For those of you who have just joined us for session 4, welcome, welcome. My name is Carissa Seat, and I'm your MC. So we're down to the final session here at session 4, the International Safety at Sea Conference, kind of rounding off this conference. But before we start, I'd like to have your attention, please, to take a seat and take a moment to view the fire safety video. Okay, let's all have a look.
Welcome to Park Royal on Beach Road. Please give us your full attention as we show you what to expect when the fire alarm is activated.
Fire safety evacuation video. The fire alarm has been activated. We are investigating the situation. Please remain calm and wait for further instruction. Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. There exists an emergency situation in the building. Please evacuate by the nearest exit and obey all instructions given by the fire wardens. Remember to avoid the use of lifts. All guests from Grand Ballroom 2 and 3 please exit through the designated fire exit door near to the link bridge. Please evacuate in an orderly manner. Take only your valuables and leave all bulky items behind. All guests from Grand Ballroom 1, Sky Ballroom 1, 2, 3 and Boardroom please exit through the designated fire exit doors 9, 10 or 11 leading to the courtyard. Please remain calm and head towards the fire assembly point. Please be careful as you make your way down the stairs. All staff, guests, customers, visitors shall not re-enter the building once at the assembly point unless instructed otherwise by the civil defense officer in attendance. On reaching the assembly area, please take your attendance with the staff present. If you are feeling unwell or need any medical attention, please inform the staff present.
Thank you for your kind attention and have a nice day.
Really do appreciate your attention. I know some of you have watched it at least 4 times since you've started the conference with us. But you know what? Safety, we shouldn't take for granted. How many ballrooms are there? Everyone's like, I've watched it 4 times. I think there are 3 ballrooms and 1 grand ballroom. 4. Okay, so you see, that's the thing with safety. We take it for granted. Well, that said, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for really giving us your attention and for being here, choosing to be here when you could be anywhere else. So this is session 4, and we are focusing on enhancing maritime safety through technology. So I was just asking, okay, we talked about cybersecurity, and then now technology. I think that's pretty hand in hand, right? So once you feel confident you've got the coverage, you can actually up your technology and, of course, up the benefits of the various technologies available to you and how that enhances maritime safety and what more can you do actually in your organizations. I think this is a conversation that continues to evolve and move very, very quickly. You know something now, and then there's 2 more to learn later. So today we're so pleased to be having our panel of speakers. Likewise, in the earlier format, what they did was they came up, they presented for 10 minutes each, and then they all came up together as a panel session for you to actually interact and ask questions. So with that, we have a total of 4 speakers who will be taking the stage with their presentation, 10 minutes. And it's my pleasure right now, ladies and gentlemen, to call upon our very first speaker. He's from Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, Director of Maritime Systems and Technology. Please welcome Mr. Dennis Khoo. Dennis, thank you for starting us off, session 4.
Okay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Dennis, and I'm the Director for Maritime Systems and Technology Division in MPA. I'm humbled today to stand here and share perspectives on the topic of enhancing maritime safety through technology. So first, some context. I think many of you already know Tuas Port will be built in 4 phases. And today, our container terminals are separated and located in Singapore city centre. Once fully constructed, Tuas Port can handle up to 65 million TEUs, 20-foot container equivalents, and can serve future mega vessels of up to 24,000 TEUs. So through consolidation and automation, we are looking to boost operational efficiency, and economies of scale, and reduce interterminal haulage operations by sea and by road. As Singapore's nationally determined contribution is to reach net zero emissions by 2050, Tuas Port will be a more sustainable, safe, and efficient state-of-the-art facility. So what does this mean for MPA? Well, first and most critically, we will need to tackle many new operational challenges as vessels powered by new fuels such as methanol, ammonia, and hydrogen, maritime drones, and autonomous vessels. All these will be operating within the same limited sea space, and we can only optimize these assets by leveraging smart digitalization technologies, essentially by doing more with less. And next, we will have to establish a common situation picture and plan our operations around it by breaking down information silos and reducing the human cognitive load for our operators. And this can only be achieved through automation, data exploitation, and sense-making. Finally, we will need to be agile and nimble as we explore these new technologies through test beds and sandboxes so as to unlock the true value of technology without compromising safety. This applies to aspects such as ship safety, system safety, and most importantly, human safety. So this brings me to what we term as multi-domain awareness, which helps us to uphold high standards of maritime safety in our port. So we recognize now the trend of increasing interactions between assets above, on, and below the sea surface. So traffic management in these three layers will become crucial. Some of these new maritime services include ship-shore deliveries, autonomous underwater vessels, performing hull inspections and cleaning, and even prototype drones that can operate from underwater and fly into the air. As for the space layer on the top left, we are also looking to augment our beyond line-of-sight capabilities, such as exploiting space-based communications and space-based sensors for enhanced incident management and to better support our Singapore flag vessels around the world. For example, MPA faced immense challenges in locating the Singapore-registered tanker, Success 9, that was suspected to be boarded by pirates earlier this year. And satellite imagery capabilities would allow MPA to locate SRS vessels thousands of kilometers away from our shore. With maritime assets digitalizing at an increasing pace, cybersecurity will become crucial as it presents both opportunities and threats at the same time. So how do we secure our crown jewels, yet embrace open systems architecture and open standards? So I'll talk a bit about our surface initiatives, which is our next generation vessel traffic management. Essentially, we want to uphold higher standards of navigational safety amidst challenges such as limited sea space, manpower constraints, and sustainability. With disruptive technologies such as AI and machine learning, we hope to transform our existing system into one that can digitalize and free up our operators to handle higher vessel traffic volumes safely. We are embracing an open system architecture approach to develop new modules as well as to upkeep existing ones in an agile manner. The NGV-TMS, which is the name of the new system, will allow us to be at the forefront of IMO's e-navigation and digital maritime services, with connectivity platforms such as VHF data exchange system that provides secure and reliable data transfers. So where are we today on this journey? We have completed 3 years of research and development in our Maritime Innovation Lab, and some of the R&D deliverables are shaping our next generation prototype development. So NGV-TMS is envisaged to allow us to manage our increasingly crowded port waters, limited airspace, and subsea space more effectively and safely. So looking towards the future challenges, as what was shared in the earlier session, cybersecurity will present a more nascent threat for us as we digitalize more, and it will come in the form of cyber-physical threats that can derail safety. Take, for example, the scenario where a cybersecurity attack targeting a compromised shipboard system, which in turn leads to physical incidents such as ship collisions and environmental pollution. So through pooling of financial and manpower resources, we can create economies of scale to tackle cyber threats jointly, and through the establishment of a Maritime Cybersecurity Assurance Center, or MCAOC, we will provide real-time monitoring of cyber anomalies. On the shipboard front, we are also deploying a new maritime test bed to basically, it will be the world first industrial grade cybersecurity platform that contributes towards enhancing Singapore's cybersecurity resilience, tapping on the design and validation of technologies to protect maritime assets against cyber attacks. Evidently, MPA cannot embark on maritime safety alone, and we need to collaborate with like-minded partners to achieve the results. It is important to work with various centers of excellences and institutes of higher learning to do so. For example, MPA is working with Maritime Safety Centre of Excellence in Singapore Polytechnic to take reference of the ship blueprint and key features such as propulsion, machinery, power system, and communication systems on board ships. This offers a realistic yet effective testing environment without disrupting actual vessel operations. So I'm glad that many companies are actively taking part in these exciting test beds and sandboxes, which MPA will continue to facilitate. So when incidents do happen, we need to recover quickly and restore normalcy. So today, incident managers face many challenges: diverse systems, multiple data sources, numerous stakeholders, and most importantly, the lack of a common situation picture. So we are developing a new next-generation incident management system called the IPOC, which stands for Integrated Port Operations C3, to incorporate smart features such as anomaly detection, sense-making, and data analytics. Apart from incident management, the IPOC will also double up as a safety enforcement tool to help our port inspectors in their daily work, such as vessel inspections, monitoring of vessels of interest, and supporting drone operations and detections over waters to support flight safety operations. MPA is also building an integrated ops hub to cover the 5 layers, and IPOC will be positioned as the central nervous systems to ingest all these data. This will then allow MPA to provide and achieve comprehensive maritime situation awareness during maritime incidents, coordinate resource optimization, carbon emission reductions, productivity, and uphold maritime safety. To further maritime digitalization and develop future concept of operations, MPA, IMDA, our national telco regulator, and M1, our local telco, are collaborating to provide full maritime 5G coverage in our major anchorages, fairways, terminals, and boarding grounds by 2025. As mentioned in Acting Minister's opening speech, Phase 1 of Maritime 5G has been completed this year to support testing and development of new digital applications such as digital bunkering, telemedicine, maritime drone delivery, and remote pilotage. This will serve as a test bed for maritime technology innovations and accelerate the R&D of new maritime applications where high throughput, low latency, and cybersecurity by design are required. For example, M1 and Fullerton are leveraging Maritime 5G to improve the audio and video quality of telemedicine consultations, drone delivery of medication for seafarers. This reduces the need for seafarers to be transferred to shore for medical assistance. So Maritime 5G will enable proliferation of new concepts of operations, mitigate safety risks, increase access to healthcare, and boost productivity and sustainability. So the possibilities are actually endless. So in conclusion, technology and digitalization in general serves as the core backbone of Maritime Singapore, and MPA will continue to work with like-minded partners to enhance maritime safety through technology. I've come to the end of my sharing, and I look forward to the discussion with the panelists later. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dennis, for getting us started in session 4 with that sharing. And of course, more to come during the panel session as well. Thank you, Dennis. And next up, taking the stage to share more with us is Director of Marine Safety and Vetting, Rio Tinto, Mr. Christian Riz. Christian, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I'll need my glasses on to read the font size here on my presentation. No, first of all, thank you very much, MPA, for the opportunity to speak at the Safety at Sea conference. Before I move on, just a minor disclaimer. My presentation is from a resource company, and we are only engaged in the dry bulk segment, and I totally recognize that to some it will be a bit centered around dry bulk, but I think the challenges we face and the opportunities we have at hand in the broader industry is very identical. And I therefore also hope that I can give you some insights and takeaways irrespective of the industry segment you may represent. Thank you. And before we move on, I think the slides are available on MPA's webpage. So should you choose to download our slides, there's some cautionary statements which I encourage you to read in case you download the slides from the webpage. All right. Rio Tinto is amongst the world's largest dry bulk charters. On volume, we are the largest shipper, and Rio Tinto have more than 230 vessels on the water at any given time. We work across 170 ship owners over the course of a year, and our charters are manned by approximately 6,000 seafarers, which is complemented by the 350 seafarers we have on board our own 17 vessels. The dry bulk market is quite fragmented, and Rio Tinto charters are still just a very small fraction of the global fleet of around 12,000 dry bulk vessels and around 2,300 ship owners. And the fragmentation alone, with a varied regulatory framework, results in a wide area of standards in the industry. As a leading charter, our vision is to have a fatality and injury-free chartering portfolio and an uplifted baseline for crew welfare. Across our global managed operation in mining and metal processing, over 50 assets in 35 countries, Rio Tinto has focused over the past years on improving our own safety performance at the sites, and fatality elimination have really been high on our agenda. And to date, I'm very proud to share with you that we are on our mining sites, and for the 17 owned vessels, we haven't had any fatalities. Now, if we look at our chartered fleet, although we haven't had any fatalities in the past 5 years, we are deeply concerned by the loss of life that still occurs on our chartered fleet. Since 2019, we have experienced 17 lives that has been taken. 17 families have forever been impacted, along with numerous colleagues and friends. At the industry level, according to the Alliance report, a fatality was reported every week in 2021, and between 2014 to 2019, there was a fatality every 3 to 4 days. And I think these incidents here are a stark reminder that too many fatalities and injuries are continuing to occur across the industry and also in our vessel portfolio. I would like to mention that we are very pleased to see that the past close to 2 years, since the 1st January 2022, we have not experienced any fatalities on board our chartered fleet, which we appreciate, obviously. Crew and welfare and well-being, whereby seafarers feel respected as individuals, that they can access food, water, they can stay connected with their families, and have a chance to enjoy shore leave, are essential. It's not only a basic right, but it's also about talent, attraction, retention, and it's imperative for us as an industry to sustain responsible shipping. Given the size of Rio Tinto's operation, we are aware that we are in a unique position and we have an opportunity to positively shape the industry, and this is something we take very seriously. And we are focusing a lot on doing our part, and our vision is to reach a fatality and injury-free portfolio and a significantly uplifted crew welfare. In this light, dependencies and existing norms will be need to be challenged, as well as ways of working, and therefore is partnering with the industry, with the authorities like the MPAs and other regulatory bodies, vessel operators, owners, and technical managers that shares the same vision, critical for Rio Tinto. In Rio Tinto, we consider pre-screening and vetting as an essential element of our risk management. RightShip is in this connection our primary source for information, which we on basis of RightShip's vetting data and desktop vetting services review in Rio Tinto vessel suitability for Rio Tinto charter. To further support the chartered vessel safe operation, but also the industry as a whole, we have initiated 5 strategic safety and welfare initiatives here in 2023. We have our designated owners and operators standards, which set standards within the areas of fatality prevention, occupational health and safety, crew welfare, and industry operational practices. We are on a quarterly basis carrying out our owners and engagement sessions where we have workshops with our owners and operators, and we are inviting industry experts and owners and operators to present at these events. And at our latest event, which was in Suntec City a few weeks back, we had 80 participants, and at the previous event where online participation was possible, we had more than 800 participants from around the world. 300 participants from around the world. We strive to make these sessions interactive, and as I mentioned, we want to lean in and to have these discussions with the owners and operators and the experts about how we as charters can support the uplifted standards we all are after. To support our vetting protocols, we have a tailored inspection program for our chartered fleet. For our TC vessels, we do periodic inspections annually, and for our voyage charter vessels, which we have a pretty large portion of, we do unplanned inspections. In 2023, we have targeted around 500 inspections, and in 2024, we will commence with sailing visits on board the ships that are part of our designated owners and operators program. What brings it all together is our SAIL platform, Safety Assessment by Intelligent Learning, where we compile all our operational data, and this is our tool to support a risk assessment mitigation, but also supports the opportunity to engage with our commercial partners and discuss safety, operations, trends, and can also reach the broader industry with HSE notifications, smaller learning packages, etc. In terms of our ports and terminals around the world, we, in order to enhance safety and improve the specific knowledge, we have, during 2022 and 2023, spent time on developing tailored training packages for each of the individual ports and terminals, but also ports where we frequently operate. In total, we plan to release around 17 packages, which will be self-directed training material, which can be downloaded for free. If we zoom in on the flagship program we have amongst our initiatives, which is the Designated Owners and Operators Standard, we aim to, with this standard, to differentiate owners and operators that are committed to Rio Tinto's vision for a fatality and injury-free portfolio and uplifted crew welfare. We provide a structured platform for Rio Tinto and our partners to work together to improve safety and the welfare outcomes. The program targets sustained commitment to enhance everyday practices from defined standards while sharing best practices and incident learnings. The program is volunteer, and any of our commercial partners can join the program by going through a series of steps, which includes a company self-assessment, a program gap analysis, and finally, audit verification, intentionally to qualify for the Designated Owners and Operators program. The backbone in the program is our safety stewardship triangle, which is composed by fatality prevention. We have adopted the Sustainable Shipping Initiative crew welfare standard and applied the HSE routines from the dry bulk management standard. With the safety stewardship triangle, we aim to introduce common standards across our chartered fleet to obviously uplift standards. And it has been super important for Rio Tinto to use standards that are already available in the industry. We don't want to invent the wheel here, but we would like to obviously have others of our peers and charters across the industry to consider maybe adopting some of these standards, enabling us to be on common ground when it comes to setting clear expectations to the ship owners and operators. As mentioned, we have in 2022 implemented an advanced safety assessment tool applying risk algorithms to support digitalization of fleet risk profiling through compiling and storage of data and application of intelligent learning tools. This gives us an opportunity to optimize on our resources, and I will say a lot. We can have a lot of steps now being automated for risk assessments, and we have also a much higher resolution of the risk profiles for the individual operator, owner, and the vessels, and that can support us in data-driven decision-making and reduce our risk exposure. SAIL provides us with a high-resolution risk profile of vessels. It enables us to also prioritize our inspection resources, but also give us an opportunity to engage with operators and owners if we see they fall short on some areas or may illuminate in our system, which we do on a regular basis. It gives us reliable data to support the collaboration in general with owners to enhance safety barriers and incident prevention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian, for sharing your insights. And of course, we certainly look forward to the conversation developing in the panel session. Next up to take the stage, he is Chief Technology and Innovation Officer from Lloyd's Register, as well as the Chairman of Safety Tech Accelerator. Please welcome Mr. Chakib Abisab. Good to have you. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chakib. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. Now, the challenge when you are going to speak third and fourth after brilliant speakers on the same topic is that most of what you wanted to say is already said. So I will try not to be repetitive. I will try to highlight on the main points, but without becoming too repetitive. That said, if we look at everything we have seen during the last 25 minutes, it is clear to me, and it should be to all of you, that the name of the game is data. In order to achieve 90% of the things that we have seen here, you need good, reliable data. And to that end, let me start with a quick personal story that should tie us to that point. I believe I've said it to a couple of you before. When I first moved to Singapore, I was asked to move very quickly, meaning from 1 week to the next. I was living in Malaysia, and I had to leave my wife behind with a 1-year-old daughter to finish the moving by herself. Very tough job. I felt really bad about doing that. My wife, who is a very strong, fantastic woman, said, "Don't worry, you go do what you need to do, I'll manage." And as always, she did. So because of that, I wanted to do something special for her. And I decided to buy this Balinese wooden bedroom set that she always liked. She's Indonesian, by the way. And when I went there, the salesman, a Singaporean man, convinced me to buy a mattress that was more expensive than the whole bedroom set. He said, I spent 10 hours on my bed. Long story short, I bought the mattress. My wife moves to Singapore. She loves the bedroom set. And after a week, she says, "Honey, I don't really think I like this mattress. I don't sleep well." And I'm in shock, but I see that she's sleeping well. So I was a bit surprised. And I then decided to buy one of those sleep trackers in 2017. They were new, not like today. And we started to monitor her sleeping patterns. And we found out after a week that she was, in fact, sleeping very well. And it was in her mind, simply probably because we moved to a new place, etc. So, ladies and gentlemen, data-driven decision-making is the way to make the right decisions. We did not have to change the mattress. Yeah? And it is interesting because data will help you make the right decisions in business and in your personal life. Never forget that. So, let's get into some of the critical challenges that we see without, again, trying to be repetitive. The first one is, there's been a trouble increase in maritime accidents, particularly in third world countries with fishermen. Some of them not reported, and we are highly alarmed by this challenge. Others ranging from collisions to groundings, fires. These incidents, if we do not take control of them, will have and continue to have far-reaching consequences. We also have very serious environmental concerns. We are seeing oil spills, chemical leaks, who are harming the maritime ecosystem and the biodiversity. And the truth is that if we are frank, there is a lot more talk than action being taken. And it is very important that organizations like us, from a safety tech accelerator point of view, to work with organizations like you to identify solutions, and from organizations like Lloyd's Register, where I also work, to ensure that we have the right regulations and the right procedures to avoid this happening. Piracy and security threats remain persistent, regardless of how much effort has been put to resolve those problems. This is impacting not only the safety of the vessels, but it's also impacting the security of vital maritime trade routes and increasing costs. And when we talk about costs, one of the interesting things is that people don't realize that a 5-10% in cost increase, while it might not mean much to many of us here, it means a lot to people in third world countries that are barely able to get food for their families. So it is important that we look at these problems from a context of a global scenario and not just localized, because sometimes things we don't think are a big problem are much bigger somewhere else. In efficient communication systems, we saw the importance of communication systems there, so I won't get into too many details, but I would like to add that what we see is that they lead to delays in emergency responses and search and rescue operations. And this is extremely important to us because it risks lives. Additionally, One of the very interesting things is that we as an industry focus too much and rely too much on humans making decisions under very complex and stressful scenarios, which create errors that become accidents, and those accidents risk lives. So we need to ensure that we have very clear procedures to ensure that people are making decisions under the right circumstances, they're getting the proper rest, and that we are not risking the safety of the entire crew. So let's look at some of the things that are being used today, and then the next slide I will touch on some things that we're looking in the future. Some of these we take for granted today are starting to be implemented. And let's talk about AIS, for example. Very simple, we take it for granted. But this was actually a game changer if you think about it. It allowed vessels to exchange vital information like position, speed, and of course, the direction. This technology greatly enhanced the situational awareness, and it helped vessels avoid collisions, which is extremely important and was, again, a major game changer that sometimes we don't realize because we take it for granted. It simply is there today. Satellite communications. Satellite communication systems now ensure that vessels can maintain constant contact with shore, even in remote areas. Now that we are seeing new technologies coming up, new satellite companies starting to offer high bandwidth, low latency connectivity anywhere in the world, what we will see is a major influx in the industry of organizations that will enable data that require major data transfer that up until today were not able to be implemented in the maritime industry. And now in the maritime industry, we will be able to utilize some of those fantastic technologies that will enable us to optimize performance of ships. Radar and sonar systems, camera systems, they are now greatly enhancing the way we operate and avoid collisions. Now, I mentioned in the past slide some of the challenges we still see, however, with collisions, with fishermen, etc., particularly in third world countries. So we need to identify a way to solve this problem, because one of the biggest challenges is that some of these cases are not reported, and many of these cases have lives lost. So it's a very big challenge that we need to address as a multi-country, multi-organization. Unmanned aerial vehicles, we also saw some good examples there, so I will not repeat, but they have clearly revolutionized the maritime industry when it comes to search and rescue efforts. They can also cover large areas very quickly. And artificial intelligence, of course, we see the systems can review vast amounts of data and allow us to make much faster decisions that are much more accurate, including not having to sell your mattresses. Oops. So some of the technologies that now we are seeing developing, autonomous vessels. Autonomous vessels are not going to come up in the next 2 years or 3 years, except for coastal ones. But everything that we are doing is getting us closer to that, and this will be a dramatic shift in the way ships operate, because it will reduce the number of people we have in ships, eventually will eliminate it, whether it takes 5 years or 50 years, but that is the direction that we see the industry going to, and it will dramatically decrease the problems that we have today created by human errors. Cybersecurity is a major challenge in the industry. The growth of technology adoption in the industry means also that we're opening many holes in the connectivities that can create vulnerabilities that could potentially affect the way vessels operate and many other challenges. Big data and analytics, well, this is part of what I started the conversation with, so I won't get too much into that. Enhanced emergency responses, better connectivity means better, faster, and more accurate information, which means that we can respond faster. And of course, with technologies like drones and other sensors, we can truly start monitoring environmental, measure environmental pollution and ensure that we keep better control and that we are able to enforce the laws in a much better way. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that sharing, Mr. Chakib. And might I add, I think data-driven decision-making is good, but there's also emotions in there, isn't it? Happy wife, happy life. I'm sure things worked out for you. That's it, our final speaker before we go into panel session. We have Mr. Peter de Coney. He is from Titleist APAC Limited, Managing Director. Pleased to have you, Mr. Peter. The stage is open for you. Please, a warm round of applause. Welcome him. Look forward to your sharing.
Distinguished guests, good afternoon. It's an honor to speak to an audience with so much nautical experience. That doesn't happen every day. I work for a company called Titleist. It's a relatively new name in the market, only in the market for around 6 months. But our company has been in maritime software for more than 50 years. And we started in the Netherlands, and we have this moment experience in ports around the world. Maritime safety has been the topic in the last 2 days. I'm the last speaker before we go for drinks, maybe. But too often, maritime safety is incident-driven. And most of you here in the room will remember the incidents in 1999 with the Erika and in 2002 with the Prestige, each causing huge environmental damage and each responsible for an acceleration in legislation, in particular in Europe, to have more safety rules in place for where ships with dangerous cargoes can sail. And these rules are, of course, still in effect today. And it also led, as was mentioned by the previous speaker, to more or less the implementation of AIS. And boy, did that take a long time. When I entered the VTS industry in 2002, AIS was just implemented. And we were really looking in the port of Rotterdam, where is the AIS target? And guys were called in the room when the first AIS target was visible. And what do we see now? AIS is the ultimate sensor. But when I went and visited the Dutch Coast Guard in 2005, my previous instructor in the navigation class was the director of the Coast Guard, and I told him about the advantages of AIS and what it could do for his organization. He said, I don't want to know about it. I don't want it. I said, why? This is so good. He said, I'm a big fan of our Netherlands historian Hugo de Groot, who put out the rule of the high seas. Whatever happens beyond the 12 nautical miles is not my problem. I don't want to know about it. And why? Because I don't have the resources. If I see it, I have to do something about it. So I don't want it. But he was again corrected because of legislation. Sometime the Netherlands had to implement the AIS networks, and so did many of the coastal states. And once that he started to use it, the technology really improved this operation. He was able to see vessels not behaving according to law. And actually, because it was recorded, he could earn money with the system because he could support court cases with actual data. And he didn't want to say goodbye to the system anymore after that. From that AIS network, we started to look at the North Sea, and the Ministry of Transport and the Coast Guard that time also decided to integrate all the seaward-looking radars along the Dutch coast into a single system for the Netherlands Coast Guard. So all the ports gave their radar information to the Coast Guard. So that was a huge improvement of their situational awareness. And then we got interest from the offshore industry, who also, in a co-investment, started to put base stations on the offshore platforms. The Netherlands continental shelf is a quite significant water area, but at some stage, most of the areas were covered by AIS, which allowed the Coast Guard to look at do ships adhere to the traffic separation schemes, keeping their distance if required. But then other needs arisen. We heard MPA about multi-dimension, and also in the Netherlands, the Coast Guard felt the need to track helicopters, and in particular helicopters providing staff transfers, equipment transfers to the offshore platforms. They fly at 500 feet and above along helicopter-protected routes and zones, and these were not detected by the normal ATC radars of Netherlands Air Traffic Control. So the Netherlands did a tender procedure, and we installed a system called multilateration, ADSB, which is not a maritime transponder, but an aircraft transponder, and that was interfaced to the Coast Guard system. So by then, the Coast Guard had the 2D and actually nearly the 3D image of at least the helicopters. So if a helicopter would crash, they would have the last position, and because of the AIS, they could also identify vessels around the crash site and direct them for the search and rescue. Again, a huge improvement. So the Netherlands Coast Guard has a pretty good image of what's happening in the North Sea. And now, Netherlands Ministry of Transport wants to go even further. They have an initiative called the Digital North Sea. When you look at the continental shelf, you see all the traffic routes. And the big difference, when I was sailing along the North Sea doing exercises, we still had space. Nowadays, there is hardly any space. It's traffic routes, there are a lot of wind farms, there are a lot of environmental protection areas, and now the ministry also wants to look at the underwater infrastructure. All these wind farms are connected with power cables. There is a huge amount of data cables. We've read recently in the newspaper that, again, in the Baltic, a pipeline and a cable have been damaged. So the interest of the authorities switches to more dimensional warnings. Inevitable. But adding these dimensions will also add to complexity. And also it has safety concerns. One of our customers, the Port of Antwerp, is already at this moment using autonomous drones. And why are they very interesting? Because these drones operate beyond line of sight. And that is unique. I mean, here, Singapore, of course, there will be drone operations, and we will see if that in the future, as was shown by MPA, could be integrated. But of course, drone operations close to Changi Airport with the aircraft doing their descent is something different. It requires, again, regulation. Other dimensions, as was shown, could be added. The underwater image or the autonomous vessels. But we assume initially that all these vessels are cooperative and that they have a form of transponder, which we can, through an interface, make available as a track in the vessel traffic management system. That is really a safety concern for all these operations, be it drones or underwater vehicles. And all this increased information is possible because of the improved communication. Maritime 5G, satellite communication, and AIS 2.0. And all that will help to improve the just-in-time arrival, which is a major safety concern. We heard a lot of concerns yesterday about the environmental impact of shipping, and I read an interesting statistic that I want to share with you. But if the maritime industry operates more according to the just-in-time principle by reducing speed and making sure that the whole logistic chain is optimized and prepared, 50% of the targeted reduction could be achieved just through that. And a smaller percentage is with the alternative fuels. So this just-in-time arrival is something to really focus on. And we can only do it in a multi-dimensional VTS, where we have a more optimized arrival planning, focusing on this just-in-time arrival. But it does require better communication and also transparency, because as a port, you should be able to reschedule or schedule the arrival times of different operators in order to optimize the planning of the port. That means sharing of information. In our previous company, we also did air traffic control, and on an airport, that was a major step. It took more than 10 years before all the operators on the airport were willing to share their information. So that is important. Shared situational awareness. And more data transfer means less confusing messages on VHF. Nowadays, AIS is a very good tool to enhance safety, but the future, and we are implementing this already with our customer in Hong Kong, is silent VTS, where the communication exchange is of such a good level that it's hardly necessary to communicate on VHF. E-navigation. But e-navigation will also mean additional carriage requirement for vessels. So that requires legislation. And then, of course, all the ship owners or ship management companies need to require that. And that is a lengthy process. So before we have e-navigation fully implemented, we will be many years down the road. And then some very practical examples of increasing safety. We have developed a tool, pilot observation tool. Yesterday we heard an interesting statistic where during even at announced inspections, still 17% of the vessels had a faulty pilot ladder. Well, we have developed this tool, and I think you have a tool like this yourself, where pilots can photograph it and share it with other pilots and other pilot organizations to make people aware of safety concerns. And we also say, well, as a minimum, use a live vest that is fitted with an AIS SAR transponder. When you drop in the water, an alarm immediately is raised within everyone receiving AIS, and it has your name on it, and people can come into action. Well, because it's the last presentation of the day, technology versus the human factor, it remains important, because all the technology that we bring onto the market, it needs to be accepted and trained by those that need to work with it, be it the VTS operator or the seafarer, and the human factor is still the major contributor. But my experience over many years in the maritime business is when you read about an incident and there is an actual court case, read about it, because usually an accident is preceded by a long period of small incidents that finally lead to an accident. And it is also wise to say that whenever there are two involved in an accident, there's hardly ever one ship to blame. In fact, there's always two ships that are found guilty. Yeah, and then GPS. GPS is the major source of information nowadays, or GLONASS, etc. But also be aware that GPS is very easily disturbed. We heard previous seminar a lot about advanced cyber threat, but it is very easy for someone who wants to harm a port operation to go outside with a simple transmitter and blow all the GPS in quite a wide radius away. And this happened also near airports, where all of a sudden ships lost their, or aircraft lost their landing capability just because of that. And why was it caused? A truck driver who had a VHF transmitter to suppress the GPS so his boss couldn't find out where he put his truck. So with that, I want to end. Don't forget the basics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. Can we have you back on stage together with your speakers? I'd like to invite back our earlier speakers, Mr. Dennis Koo, Mr. Christian, Mr. Chakib, and of course Mr. Peter to join us. Moderating this panel session will be Mr. Jimmy Koh. He is the Head of Pilotage and Digital Transformation, PSA Marine, and also a member of the National Maritime Safety at Sea Council, Singapore. That's right, so you just match your faces to your seats. So we have Mr. Chakib here. That's right, wonderful guys. That's right. Draw a line and match them to the lovely faces. All right. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, you can join the conversation. Just scan the QR code that's on your name badge and you can put in your questions on Pigeonhole. So we're good to go. Jimmy, I hand the time over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for staying back. In fact, I'm the one in between the drinks and now, okay? So I think today, for itself, we're going to listen from a different perspective from a lot of people with regards to, we have charterers, shippers who are going to talk about enhancing safety, maritime safety through technologies, Lloyd's, BTM solution provider, and of course, my MPA counterparts. So for today itself, being a moderator, you actually need to do homework, okay? And I did mine. So I have some actually basic questions. For those who knows me, and I'm actually heading the pilotage operation in Singapore, and under my hands, I have 280 pilots, which do about 450 jobs a day. So on that note, I will kick off the panel discussion by, in fact, asking Dennis, okay? With regards to actually Singapore, as we know, there is a very busy waterways, and one of the concern is always about safety of navigation, right? So as newer technologies emerge, how do you foresee the manned and unmanned vessels are going to interact with one another, and can they move together in the port? And as a MPA, as a regulator, how do you ensure that safety is maintained?
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. I see Captain Sega in the audience as well, who is actually imperative and pivotal in driving some of the manned and unmanned discussions that we have. I think indeed, the topic of autonomy actually has advanced leaps and bounds. I mean, if you look at just the parallel industries, be it on the roads or in the air, I think EVs, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles by Google, by a number of companies that are really driving some of these, I would say, advancements in technologies. Largely, there are two kinds of solutions when it comes to this kind of technologies. So one is infrastructure-based, where you actually plant sufficient sensor networks, communication networks, and then you have all this exchange of data happening in the back end, and then allowing the asset in question to basically make decisions, whether is it to go straight, to turn left, or to turn right. Similarly, in the air, I think because there's line of sight, drones are already able to fly autonomously. You just tell them point A, point B, and it does its mission. It comes back to home, right? You have drone pods where it's maintenance-free, operator-free. One system that I saw or I heard of is in Australia, where they were trying to manage the forest fires, right? And then they wanted to see the extent of how the fire is spreading. So they have planted many of these drone pods around, but the operator is sitting somewhere in some nice bar or having a drink, and then he can actually monitor the situation in the forest. So I think if we draw parallels and look at the maritime, I would say the solution space probably is a bit more complicated. Number one, majority of our areas is actually open waters, right? A large proportion of the ship's voyage is actually traversing the open waters. So paradoxically, to actually have autonomous vessels in open waters is quite straightforward. You just point A, point B, it goes, nobody is disturbing your route. But once you come to a congested port like Singapore or Port of Rotterdam, you have all these directions with manned vessels, and then all of a sudden you don't have the ability to make those decisions in real time, right? From an autonomous vessel point of view, and why? Because the safety bubble expands, right? In terms of how far you need to keep a distance from the vessel. So I think, to me, what is imperative is that we should not be afraid of the technology. We should actually try the technology out in a safe space and try to actually understand the boundaries of the performance and the safety parameters. And in doing so, mitigate the risks in stages, right? In autonomy, there are 4 levels. So perhaps to have a man on the loop before you have a man out of the loop, for example. So I mean, this is my take on things. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks. On the same questions, maybe directed to Peter. BTMS, right? Okay. Solution provider. How do you look at this perspective from your role?
Yeah, first of all, our role as a VTS provider would be to make the autonomous vessel visible and mark it as an autonomous vessel so that vessels around it also notice it's autonomous. But autonomous vessels is largely dependent on good communication, infrastructure, standardization of procedures, and also still a question of regulation. And we see that at this moment autonomous vessels are largely used for surveying operation, for very short transfers, so that it's very well controlled. And I think that will be the case for a very long time, that it will be for short, very controlled trips where the risk of accident is small. But we should maybe initially, in our presentation and also for the operators, have safety zones around autonomous vessels that move along with the vessels. If other vessels penetrate such a zone, that additional attention is flagged for that sort of encounter. So in technology, I think we can help the VTS organization a lot in working with autonomous vessels. Yeah.
Okay. I have questions actually coming in from the pigeonhole, but I'll do mine first. Okay. Moderator, right? Okay. Okay. So to Christian. Okay. For on the general level, actually linked to the safety standards and technologies, right? Where do you see the industry sits right now?
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. No, but I think if we look at this here from a global perspective, first of all, 90% of the world's seaborne trade is enabled through. The global trade is enabled through seaborne trade. We talk 90% here. And if it wasn't for the millions of workers we have deployed on shore in the marine industry, but also our seafarers on board the ships, a lot of our businesses and other businesses wouldn't be able to continue to run. And in this connection, I think it's very important that we as an industry, first of all, are able to provide a safe and healthy work environment on board, where areas like inclusivity, diversity, crew welfare is on top of the agenda, simply in order to attract and retain the talent we need in the industry. And if I may just add a little bit on this here, the complexity we have around the urgent need for decarbonization of the world's fleet, where we see a lot of larger ships coming online, which is required to be much more efficient. And in this connection, we see highly advanced electronic engines, sophisticated monitoring systems, etc. And the skill sets required to operate these kinds of ships is very, very different from the ordinary seafarer and the program he's trained in today, and as defined by the STCW convention. The latest report I read around this here was from COP27, where it was estimated around 800,000 seafarers are required to be retrained starting now and in the years to come in order for us to simply be able to operate the ships that are coming into the fleet in now and in the next few years. So definitely we have some challenges ahead. If we look at this here through the safety lens, obviously the whole training and learning space is something that will benefit the industry as a whole, because obviously safe operation of electronic engines and sophisticated equipment, it will also impact the safety standards. And I think also something quite basic as the improved connectivity we see between a ship and shore can support the way we work on board the ships. I would like to just add a few more things from a Rio Tinto perspective. I presented that we have a pretty big operation. We work with 170 ship owners and operators over the course of a year. And unfortunately, we also see quite a few incidents and injuries are happening. It's an opportunity for us to engage with the owners and operators. We lean in, we try and understand what is happening, how can we support, and we see ourselves in this connection very much as a part of the solution, and obviously have our program in place. Having said that, seafarers, first of all, they are extremely critical for Rio Tinto as a business. And when we look at the industry broadly, we see a very fragmented industry. Some companies, owners, operators have very matured and robust safety management systems, clearly defined standards, and so on. But we also see very, very poor operators and owners. And in this connection, I think we can talk technology. We got to talk a lot about technology. I'm looking very much forward to it. I'm fascinated about it. But something as basic as becoming better at sharing incidents, sharing learning from incidents, and also a little appeal to the operators and owners, maybe to be a little more diligent around how you do root cause investigations, so that we can start to prevent reoccurring of incidents. For those of you engaged in the safety space, you will know that what has happened the past 10, 15, 20 years when it comes to fatalities and injuries and incidents, not much has changed. And I think it's clear that we are not good enough to learn from our incidents. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now to Chakit. In the maritime industry, the digitization has the potential to significantly enhance safety at sea through advanced technologies like IoT, AI, machine learning, so on and so forth. So how do Lloyd Register actually is working to improve safety, and what lesson can other maritime organizations learn from this? Maybe you share your view on that.
Sure. Okay. Well, very deep question. I'll give you an example. In Lloyd's Register, we're building right now a data orchestration platform. Now, you might wonder why. That data orchestration platform will be combined with machine learning and AI. We are already testing it. And if you look at it from our perspective, we do 3,000 surveys on a monthly basis, which means that we're able to identify what are the new trends in the industry very early on if we're using AI. Now, if you are able to identify those challenges before they start creating problems that will risk lives, that will create safety issues, then we will be able to proactively, for the first time in the history of the maritime industry, resolve safety problems. Now, we have taken two different approaches. One is from the perspective of doing the data orchestration platform with AI. On the other side, we have started to invest heavily in different digital companies. You might be aware that we have acquired OneOcean, we have acquired Hanseatic Soft, we have acquired i4Insight for performance management. Now, through these acquisitions, we now have software in one way or another in 50% of the global fleet. Now, if you combine that with what we're doing with data orchestration today and understand that while we today are transitioning to new fuels, testing new engines, having new technologies for building ships, new steel requirements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. While we are solving some problems with those initiatives today, we are also creating new problems. We just do not know what those new problems are. We want to make sure that we start to identify those new problems before they risk lives. I hope that gives you a specific example.
Sure. I actually want to go into the standardization and the regulatory framework. And really from a Royal Register point of view, how your role or your organization is actively involved in shaping these standards and the regulation, and in what role do you see your organization play in the development, okay, to make it actually more cohesive in the digital ecosystem for maritime safety? And if I may, can we pull up the question which is from the Pigeonhole? It's also with regards to the same subject.
So let me make sure I understand the question. You're asking me from a Lloyd's Register perspective what role we will play in the digitalization of the industry?
Yes.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we have acquired several digital organizations. They not only have software in, like I mentioned, 50% of the global fleet, but they give us a lot of data points that enable us to identify challenges in the industry, either because of bad processes, because of lack of training of the crews, or because the simple technologies don't necessarily operate well. By doing that, combined with the typical initiatives that we have on a regular basis with shipping companies and research universities in Singapore, in London, then we are helping the industry by becoming advisors in two areas. One, on the digitalization of the industry, and two, on the decarbonization of the industry, which we believe are interconnected to a certain degree and are the two biggest areas of focus today in the maritime industry, in addition to, of course, safety. Okay. So we will help create a standardization when it comes to platforms, processes, and procedures that can be standardized across the industry.
Okay, if I put it in the context of working with a regulatory, right, okay, authority, how do you see then, in this case, your role and in what form of partnership you would like to collaborate with the authority to even enforce them or make it even better and make it faster, real quick for everyone?
Well, clearly, we are working close with most authorities around the world, and we're combining efforts to do research that enables us to create those standardizations for the shipping industry. But to be fair, one of the biggest challenges is not necessarily on regulations, but it's on the enforcement of those regulations. As I mentioned earlier today, you can have all kinds of regulations, but around the world, those regulations are only enforced in small pockets. And unless we address that problem, it doesn't matter what regulations we have. We will not solve the problems we have today.
So now back to Dennis. On the larger scope of the maritime safety technology that you have shared, right? What are some of the challenges that you face in a journey of technology explorations, testing, and adoption? Perhaps you can share some for our audiences.
Okay. I think from MPA's perspective, our mission has always been, and it still is, very clear. It's on navigational safety, right? I think whatever systems that we actually roll out or develop in MPA, that is something that preoccupies us. So one of the key challenge that we have, or we actually recognize, is the need for us to engage our operational users very closely. I think in today's context, the landscape has become so complicated and complex. There is no one system, one vendor, one product that can actually satisfy all our requirements. Every port is different from one to another. Some has a very complex network of waterways. Some actually, like Singapore, is actually much more like a large water body where there's a lot of crisscrossing of vessels. So I think what we try to do is that who are the experts in this context, and we have to work. From a technologist point of view, we have to work hand in glove with our operational users. So what it means is that as we develop some of the systems that I mentioned in my presentation earlier, our next generation vessel traffic management system for the 24/7 monitoring, as well as our incident management system, right, for handling anomalies, incidents, and then trying to bring back to normalcy. We try to work in an agile manner. We do sprints. So we are adopting some of the IT world kind of methodologies and applying it in the OT world. It's a bit challenging because some of these players that we've been used to handling, the systems that we're handling, like radars, like AIS systems, they come in very clear functional boxes, right? And then how do we break it up into bite-sized microservices where we can consume? How do we then roll it out, get user feedback, and then try to incorporate the next generation system that can handle future challenges and not just the existing ones? So I think that's one key challenge that in fact we've been facing. And the second challenge is not to be afraid of the technologies that actually we talk about AI, we talk about machine learning, but how many of us really know exactly what that means on a very tangible scale, right? So we need to embrace experimentation. We need to embrace the prototyping spirit. I think across the 2 days of session sharing by the experts, we hear things like, we don't want to wait for a solution that is 100% perfect, right? As long as it's about 70%, let's work with it, let's try it out, and then let's get some feedback on the ground and exploit the power of crowdsourcing, right? We may not have all the answers, but we rely on experts from different domains coming together and having this interaction of the minds, to generate solutions that perhaps we couldn't even think of 2 years ago, for example. So I think these are the two key challenges that I think are facing today. Yeah. Thanks.
Sure, Dennis. Last question actually for myself. I need to go back to Peter. Yeah. So on the shore base using next-gen technologies, for example, your multi-dimensional VTMS system, right? How do you envisage the trainings needs so that the maritime safety can be advanced to a higher level? And should there be a minimum standards for shore-based operator? And how the maritime industry can adopt this into our ecosystem?
Okay, thank you for that question. What we see in our encounters with customers more and more is that it becomes difficult to hire staff with a very broad maritime experience who want to be a vessel traffic operator. So a lot of customers resort to in-house training, and they want technology that can be learned by people with a different background and then take care of the training over a certain period of time. And I think that's also what we will see industry-wide. Less and less people, at least I know in Europe, are willing to spend long time at sea, even though the infrastructure has improved much over the years, but there will be a general shortage in people with a maritime background. So we need to make our systems as accessible and as automatic as possible, where indeed we would have the situation where there is maybe an AI operator supervised by somebody who lets the AI make decision and only interferes when the human is still required. And of course that requires, again, a lot of very reliable data. How is this decision model, and can we make it smarter? But I think that's the way that we see the future. Less and less people with a maritime background that still have to do the job. So we need to find clever ways of qualifying them and then support it as much as possible by user-friendly technology.
Okay, I'm getting many questions from the pigeonhole. Okay, and for Christian, I think, so they're asking, I think, with regards to the digital platform that you share, SAIL, a lot of improvement in the maritime safety, right? But do you have any examples that you can show that it actually makes some improvement, and you can share with the audiences? They will love to know.
I don't want to bring I didn't prepare a concrete example, but first of all, I think I can just explain a bit about how we deploy technology, and first of all, the whole digital transformation that has been going on for some years now. Rio Tinto is well on board here, and we use big data and suitable software platforms to gain safety insights, which is supporting us on multiple fronts to take decisions, whether this is in the commercial space or in the efficiency space or the safety space, and obviously to the focus is at our end to improve the safety, environmental and efficiency outcomes. If we look at the SAIL platform I just touched upon before, we utilizing the data to get the safety insights, and then we have the opportunity to enable a capturing of data onto one centralized platform, where the data is coming from multiple and fragmented sources. And in a structured way, it is centralized on SAIL, which gives us an opportunity to have a very, very clear risk profile of operators and owners and individual ships. It supports us in taking timely decisions, becoming more proactive, and with the programs we have running, you guys saw and girls, excuse me, you saw the figures before. We do around 500 inspections now, and we plan to add some more sailing audits for our DOS members, and a lot of data will go into the system along with what we have out there in the industry, and of course that can support us in the engagements we have with the operators and owners. I would like to emphasize that in Rio Tinto, an incident or an injury is of course one too many, but it's not the end of the world. And whenever there is an incident or an injury, and those of you who work with us regularly, we see this as an opportunity to engage. And what is, apart from the immediate response to the incident, apart from that, and the crew or the property is well looked after, then secondly, our priority is to understand So what do you intend to do about it? And we will expect that a proper root cause investigation is carried out, and we will expect that efforts are put in to prevent the incident from reoccurring. And we will typically anonymize the incident and share it across the industry for those who is interested to learn more about that. I have a few points I want to bring across around connectivity and also on technology and the human element of things. I think, first of all, we should not forget about that technology gives us some opportunities also in the human element space. And technology can definitely also, if we marry the two, support us significantly in the way we work. It's not only about navigational aids or advanced engines, it can also really support us in how we do things. And the improved connectivity we have on board the ships at the moment, or on many ships, and many more will follow, is a good example of the opportunity to have meaningful conversations, face-to-face video conference call between the shore-based management and the shipboard leadership team, and discuss safety, discuss operational and commercial aspects, as opposed to the traditional email correspondence, where a lot of information tends to get lost. And here, a good example is the standard mail coming from the commercial operations team. Dear Captain, can you reach the Lacan in time? And if we just as a thought example consider a vessel that is in the Malacca Strait, it's en route, maybe it's going to do a stopover in Singapore, it's going to pass through Singapore TSS, Singapore Strait, then maybe it will go up along the coast of China, arrive in some port up north. Now, that ship is going to go through the world's most congested waters. It's going to pass through through waters with hundreds of vessels. You're going to have crossing ferries. I know how many collisions you have a day in Singapore Strait. And then it's going to go up along the coast of China, where you have thousands of fishing boats. And if we loop back to the message from the commercial operator saying in good spirit, best intentions, dear Captain, can you reach the Lacan in time? And what I want to bring across here is there are many ways to reach that port. And you could have a Captain A. He choose to interpret that mail as if you can reach there safe, it's good. So he will comply with regulations. He will reduce his speed. And we know during that transit, you have on multiple legs need to go like with 50, 60 knots, 5 to 6 knots. And as a consequence, he may not reach his Lacan in time. And then there could be a Captain B. He feels that given that mail, he needs to reach the Lacan in time. So he chooses to cut down on the safety margins. He chooses to remove some risk controls. He goes with 10, 12 knots through Singapore Strait and navigate through all the hundreds of fishing boats. Maybe he has a few near misses. I don't even want to think what could also have happened without he notices it. But he reached the Lacan. And I think it's worth reflecting on how are we rewarding / penalizing, recognizing these two types of captains. You have a safe captain. He done everything he should, but he's going to cost the company hundreds of thousands of dollars because he missed the Lacan, he missed the lineup, he is, several days delayed. Then you have this risky guy. He had few near misses. He ran a risk of causing pollutions, fatalities, structural property damage, collisions, and everything. And he reached it in time. will we reward that guy? And how visible is it really in our system how safe our operation is? And the only thing I can say, I'm sure you guys have something to chip in with here, because there must be some leading indicators, some monitoring systems that can support that these poor safe captains are rewarded a bit more, and that we capture the unsafe captains and learn them how to run their ships good. Because if you are having a culture where you direct your commercial teams to bring across to the master that commercial interests go above safety, then you run an unsafe operation. And you're going to have some collisions at some point in time. So navigational aids, technical support, all that, it's the master who's calling the shots. And I think that's an interesting perspective to put in. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe can I just react to Christian? I think actually what you said it resonates. And I think how MPA as an authority tries to find a solution to that. I won't say they will solve it completely, but I think what we are now tinkering about is in the integrated port systems C3 that we are trying to develop, we are infusing what we call patterns of life of vessels, or trying to do that, meaning that we are tracking vessels in a sense across its lifespan, in terms of its behavior, in terms of its AI tracks, in terms of its how he handles, how he goes about his voyages. And through some of these insights, actually translates into what you just mentioned. At the end of the day, is it about rewarding or is it about penalizing that particular vessel? I think what the authority can do, at least minimally, is that perhaps we can move you to the back of the queue, right? In terms of when you come to the port for services, or that you wait longer in the anchorages and then you pay more port dues. But those are, in the larger scheme of things, boils down to one thing, which is cost. At the end of the day, even despite all our best intentions, if the company or the owner thinks that there is a disproportionate in terms of gains and penalties, right? I would still choose to do the way I do things. So I thought that this is something that, as an industry, as an ecosystem, it gives a lot of things to think about. Which is the direction we want the entire industry to go towards. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Chakit, anything to add on this?
We have heard a lot about technology and technology. The one thing that I'd like to clarify, even me as a chief technology officer, is technology is not the magic wand to solve every problem. And I think we have to be very careful and learn to differentiate between truly disruptive technologies that will help us achieve the objectives versus destructive technologies. And what works for one company might not work for the next, because the level of maturity in terms of processes, people, and technologies implemented by each one of them might be completely different. So it is very important that this is assessed company by company, and that we do not leave this meeting thinking that technology is a silver bullet, because without proper processes, you will get bad results. Maybe faster, but still bad.
How about we touch a little bit on redundancy with regards to technologies, right? Maybe let's hear from Peter, your side, dimensional VTMS, right?
Redundancy. Of course, redundancy is an important principle, not only ashore, but also on board. It should be available throughout an organization, which is why we have a lot of experience in providing complicated VTS organizations with redundant centers where if one fails, the other one can take over immediately. I think one of the good examples is if you look at Rotterdam, which in the past had 5 manned centers, now has gone down to 2, one at the outer approach, one in a very busy port area. So those are now critical centers. They only have 2. But each center consists of 2 wings. One wing is operational, and the other wing is empty, fitted out with exactly the same equipment. And the other VTS has also 2 wings. One is empty, one is operational, and they're cross-redundant. So if one has to be evacuated in case of fire, the other one can take over. So yeah, redundancy is super important.
Yeah.
Can I just make one remark on what Christian said? Because I thought that very interesting, because I thought about safety, and when I was preparing the presentation, I also wrote this already down. Safe and timely arrival, because there is a tension between the two, and I think that's exactly what he described. One captain focuses on the timely arrival, the other one on the safely. Maybe as a reward principle, the one who arrives always safe should get more slack in his arrival planning, so that he can maneuver a bit more. I think that would be a principle.
Okay, maybe we get some questions from the floor to make it more engaging. Anyone? Captain Vivas?
Thank you, gentlemen, for some beautiful presentations. I was listening to that example you gave, Christian, the 2 masters. Very good. Unfortunately, that's not the reality, right? We talk about safety and we talk about behaviors. Look around this room. How many commercial people do we have? Possibly very few. So when we talk about safety, I don't think we will change behaviors till it goes into the commercial world. In examples that you gave, right? Some time back when I was creating a behavioral safety, behavioral competency framework, I was actually wondering how we can transpose behaviors through technology, measure behaviors through technology. Any ideas?
You do by tracking utilization. There are some sensors now that allow us to understand speed, fuel utilization, etc. The challenge is that, while there are several technologies existing today, they are all in silos. So to solve this problem in general, which many people refer to as sell fast and wait, right? You need to have interconnectivity between all aspects of the ocean economies that includes ports. And we believe, based on new developments, that with the coming to life of new satellite technologies that are reliable, fast, and affordable, we will see a major change in terms of the full ecosystem connectivity, which will then enable that interoperability between vessels, ports. And if we do that, then we will be able to not only track and enforce the behavior of people in the crew, but also to potentially reduce speed, because you don't need to arrive today because the port is full. Instead, you arrive tomorrow, but when you arrive, you can dock, for example, so that you not only reduce the traffic in the ports, but you also actually save fuel, reduce carbon emissions, and there are many other benefits to that. So Starlink, I believe, is going to be the beginning of that interoperativity and visibility from end to end, that in the next couple of years will start enabling the visibility of everything that's happening from A to Z in the industry.
Okay, any speaker likes to add? Yeah.
think it's a good question. It was already mentioned also the next version of AIS, which allows ships to send their intended route ahead. And other vessels not only can receive the next 7 waypoints, which is more than currently, but they can exchange their whole route that they planned in their ACTIS with maybe a sea traffic management center. And that is a development that we will see in the future, I think more related to what's happening in air traffic control, where you have flow management. Every aircraft that wants to fly provides a notice, which is then processed by a system which optimizes the planning for example, all the airports in Europe, so that the first slots and gates are allocated to the next morning flights. And once it starts flying, you have delays and the planning needs to be adjusted. But that sort of flow management ultimately will also come in the vessel traffic business. There's more time, obviously, to adjust, but that is, I think, where with sea traffic management we will go to have a better planning.
Okay. Christian, yeah, please.
Yeah, no, but it's a difficult space because what we did a few years back was like, okay, fine, we look at the leading indicators. Have he done his checklist, and he filled in workplace, whatever, entry permits and so on, and tried to give an idea about is he using his safety management system. And then you find out that the apprentice officer, he was doing it all on the Sundays and filled it into the system, and the captain ran around with flip-floppers on and shouting and screaming, and it all looked good on paper. So that didn't work. And I think, first of all, the importance here is that you genuinely, in the company, at a top level, need to be very clear about what is it you expect and what is it you absolutely do not tolerate. It doesn't really matter what you have of technology. You can monitor from now on and the next couple of years, but the point is, if there isn't any senior leaders and the CEO, the C-level, set out very clear expectations, targets are also set that reflects this area here. And it starts from the shore. And if you're not able to embed that culture, enforce that culture, clear values, clear standards, clear behaviors, and clear don'ts. So if you manage to do that, which is difficult, then if you pair that against having the connectivity between ship and shore, and then you are not bringing in a captain you haven't met before, and he have 1 or 2 days induction course at some manning agent in another country, and you throw him on board the ship. If you really diligently putting efforts to suit your captain and his leadership team, both within leadership and management, but also really onboarding him in culture, values, practices, goes and no-goes, then there is this mutual agreement around this is the way we do things around here. And if you deploy the technology in the sense that you have face-to-face conversations, you can say to that nice person sitting in operation department, well, I think I can't reach the lake in time already now, because I know from my experience I need to reduce my speed on these lakes here. So it's not going to happen. And he will not be allowed to say anything else but thank you very much for highlighting it now, because safety comes first. It goes back to culture, I think. And I think we can use technology in all kinds of areas, but we are stocked with culture, values, and human behaviors for a lot of years. That's for sure. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Christian. I'm mindful about time. I think one interesting question in the pigeonhole quite a lot of vote, talking about dependency, complacency as we move along with maritime technologies, right? So maybe you can share your view on this. What do you think should be done in order not to give a false sense of security to the users, and what would you like to mention, especially from your own perspective, okay, with regards to the role that you are on? What should be the number one things that you think that the users in this case should be mindful about? Anyone? Yeah, Peter. Yeah, Peter will go first.
Yeah, I think that's back to my last slide, that as a human, you should always be very critical of the technology. And I think that is also a matter of culture, that we remain critical of all the technology that we are provided with, because it can be wrong. Just look outside. I think I mentioned this example before, but I find it always a classic. When I was first learned about the GPS, which was, of course, in the 80s when it was first operational, our navigation teacher said, well, the 95% reliability ellipse is 200 meters. 200 meters? Yeah, it's 200 meters. So that's the reason why we have buoys. So when your ship is outside of the buoys and your GPS says you're okay, then you're not okay. Keep that in mind. And okay, things have become more accurate, but still, you need to look outside the bridge wing and the window. Where are I? Where am I? Despite all the technology, that remains the basic principle. I see some people nodding. I think they can agree, but okay.
I totally agree with that. Okay. Maybe Dennis, you want to share your views?
I think that there are lessons that we can look across to have a sense of how this could potentially be applied in the maritime. So I was just thinking about the food safety, for example. You know, in the past, right, when you go to the supermarkets and you buy food, they used, I mean, this is really many years ago, there's not much information on the food labels, right? Where it come from, what kind of ingredients it has, whether it's certified for any authority, you know. And I think at the end of the day, technology has always been ahead of the user's needs, right? You have barcodes, that RFID codes. You have things that you can track. You can track down to the very last mile. Today, you buy anything online, right? You can track exactly at which stage of the journey your parcel is at. You know, has it cleared customs? Is it sitting in that storage facility, or etc.? But then, at the end of the day, it is down to the user. What does the user want, right? If it is, I think it resonates with some of what my panelists shared. If the user inherently believes that safety is a non-compromisable virtue, then it's not a question of whether you have the technology to do it or not, right? In the absence of technology, you will still find an operational workaround to ensure that maritime safety is upheld. I think that is something that I thought is quite relevant to this. The false security part is probably for users who actually are just trying to say, there's a rule, let's follow it. Let's not question the rule. If the rule changes, then maybe I can think about it, right? If not, then don't change it. So I think there are enough people on either side of the equation, and I think the challenge for us is how do we move from one to the other end, where maritime safety, or at least the spirit of it, it is something inherent in us and not something that is imposed on you. It's not something that you have to do on top of your activity, but it's part of your activity. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Chakit, next, you have 2 minutes.
No, I think pretty much everything was said. The one thing that I'd like to bring to the table, though, is something that we have not said, and is that, unfortunately, the reality is that the maritime industry is talking quite a bit about safety, but the truth is that the investments don't match what we are actually saying. So it is very important that on a global basis, we really start to put the money where our mouth is and really start ensuring not only that we're talking about safety, but that we're managing the most basic part of safety, which is ensuring that crew members have the proper rest hours. Because in most of the cases that we're seeing, a lot of the incidents that we have where we blame human error are caused because the crew members are exhausted because they did not take the required rest hours that they should have. So no technology is going to change that unless the behavior from the top to the bottom of the maritime industry changes.
Okay, Christian. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree with this here, and I think we, if we look a bit on ourselves here as charters, I think it is really necessary that we start to be more well articulated around what is it for safety standards we expect from our commercial partners. In Rio, we totally recognize we have a reasonable size, and therefore we will have more resources to have more advanced systems. But any charter, any shipper that should have articulated what it is for expectations he is having to the partner that is transporting his goods. It needs to be there. We can't just rely on as charters and shippers, that the technical manager, the operator, owner of the vessel is on the same level. And if we as charters join forces, if we start to partner up, and here we are definitely ready to lead the way, and all what we have of programs is free of charge. It can be shared, it can be operationalized by any charter. We have only used the industry-recognized standards. But I really want to encourage charters to start to become much more articulated what they expect. Maybe as a comment to that, I think also on the owner and operator side, you guys that are in that space needs to also start to have a clear a vision for where you want to be, a clear strategy on how you intend to uplift your standards. And the oil and gas, the tanker segments have for many years used a self-assessments tool to understand where they are. And that has been expected by the charters, the oil majors. And there are a lot of good self-assessments tools out there, both for the container segment, the general cargo segment, but also where we are mainly Rio Tinto in the dry bulk, where we use the dry bulk management standard, which can also be used, by the way, in other segments, but also within sustainable crew welfare from the sustainable shipping initiatives. And then I just want to mention at last, we are in a situation where we need to attract and retain the best talents. If we can't even provide fresh water, good food, make sure people are getting rested, can call their wife, get shore leave. Today, I had 2 cases. This morning, I read in my teams, it came in 2 ships with MLC issues. Imagine that they are not getting enough food on board. You know, we have a few miles to go before we are there. Okay, that was my 2 cents on that note. Yeah.
Thanks, Christian. Okay, we are on time. Okay. In fact, as a service provider, my humble opinion, technology is irreversible. Okay, you will just get better and better. Of course, we need to be mindful from all different perspectives how we're going to dealt with it as we advance. My very recent trip to Shenzhen, while I was taking their Grab equivalent, the APP of the phone actually sent a reminder to the driver, stop talking to me, because they track the voice of the driver and he knows that we are casually chatting. Okay, so all this will certainly get better and better, and for us as we want to enhance maritime safety through technologies, right? Let's know its limitation and the things that are going to come along with it. But if not, I thank everyone for your time, and of course to my speakers who are here with me, thank you so much. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate this panel. Thank you so much for bringing your experiences and your wisdom. I'd like to take a photo together. Would you like to stand? I think you've been seated really comfortably for the last hour, so it's now a good time to stand. Come together, come in a little closer. Our front of table, please. And in just a while, I'd like to call upon all our other speakers as well from day one. Please join us. We want to do a big group photo together so we can commemorate this coming together annually for the conference. All right, I'd like to call upon day one. So panelists, moderator, please stay on stage with us. Day one speakers, please join us on stage. Thank you for staying throughout this entire 2 days. I'd like to give you a big round of applause, really, for adding so much value, insights to our time here. What a meaningful way of getting together in these 2 days. You know who you are. Please spot for any of our speakers and moderators. Welcome, come on up. The first day we talked about advancing maritime safety in a green and digital age, and operationalizing the methanol bunkering. Okay, well done, guys. Awesome. You can tell they're ready to roll up the sleeves, right? Just to get the best shot here. Okay, awesome. So we have the backdrop. How should we organize this? I'd like to... Just one line will do. Okay, come forward. Just come forward to about this plane here. Gentlemen, step forward. And I'd like to take this chance as well to appreciate all our audience in our midst as well who've joined us, participated actively, given us your questions. Actually, we have some more speakers. Oh, Commander Bizarro, please join us. You're part of our speaking tour. Can someone just recognize him and just get him up, invite him? Oh, he's busy. Bizarro, Commander Bizarro? Thank you for your keen eyesight, everyone. All right, yes. Well, look at that. Our speakers who have come together, flown in specially, brought in their lived experiences, expertise, thoughts, perspectives, of course, to share them with all of us. And hopefully it's been enriching, meaningful 2 days together. All right, thumbs up, big smiles. This rounds off a really successful International Safety at Sea Conference 2023. Thank you once again to our speakers, our moderators, the camaraderie, to our audience.